Hello and welcome to the latest Quarry podcast. Today we'll be discussing the Voice of Guernsey Business Insight report that was released by the G8 ahead of the general election. Today I'll be talking to Alice Gill from the Guernsey Chamber of Commerce and Glenn Tonks from the IOD. Alice and Glenn, thank you for coming in today for the latest Quarry podcast. I was hoping just set out the background to the G8 and why you got together. What was the context of that happening?
Yeah, it's a good place to start. I always start with the why. I think it's really important. So a couple of really important things. So if you look at growth and productivity in Guernsey, so it's not really a good story. So growth since 2019, we've grown 1% GDP. So that's the first thing. The second thing, productivity, more scarily. So the last 15 years, we've only grown productivity 2%. So broadly, we're sort of working harder and longer. So that's sort of the starting point. So, and almost arriving at the point we are today. And you've probably heard, Guernsey's at a crossroads. It's a pivotal moment. I sort of think about it in terms of, yes, we are at a crossroads and we've sort of got two doors. We don't start addressing some of the challenges. We're potentially going to go down the door of heading towards crisis and survival mode. Now, I think most would agree we don't want to go that door. But we have time. It's a pivotal moment. I think we can go through door that heads towards a thriving economy. But we do need to rise up to the challenges and start taking action and prioritising the key areas. And I think sort of the last point is working together. And I think, what the report is yes, the G8 coming together to work together, but it's also, hey, we're at a pivotal moment. We can work with the states and the public sector as well to solve some of these challenges.
And I think I'd add to that is when we were getting together as a group of organisations, this wasn't what we planned to set out to do. We were getting together to understand what are we all doing that's the same, where can we work together, where are the options that we can make some sort of collaboration in some way to reduce the effort. And then as we were talking and going through the things that we were all put down on our priorities list, actually it became really apparent that we're all working on the same things, we're all pushing in the same direction. And with the election only 6 months in the future, we thought maybe that's something that we should consider doing as a collaboration of 8 rather than all individually.
So you've got together a broad coalition of different sectors of industry. We've got tourism, we've got charities, we've got finance, construction,
retail.
So there's a lot of voices and a lot of people represented in that. How do you come to a conclusion where you've come up with these priorities that you want to see addressed? So how difficult is it to get everyone to agree?
Yeah. Did you want to cover the survey?
Yeah,
I mean, sort of a mechanism.
Yeah, so I don't think it was that difficult to get everybody to agree. So we decided that we were going to do a joint survey out to all of our membership because we felt that was the best way to gather the data on what does the business community and the charity sector actually think. We asked them questions on some various big topics that we knew were all on our agendas. And actually, I'll probably touch on it at this point. We didn't ask any of the members about behaviours. So they came back on, clear views on connectivity, clear views on tags, clear views on what we should be doing in those areas. But what also came out of the survey was that not only did they want to see change in those areas, they wanted to see a step change in behaviours with our deputies and, behaving with respect, making decisions quickly and then standing by them, not flip-flopping as they go along. So that came out as our 7th call to action from the survey that we did at the beginning of the year, which I think was really interesting.
Yeah, and I think if I could add, the G8, and that name really stuck from the beginning. We tried to think of a different name, but it's stuck. But, if you dig in behind that, so it's 20 industries. It's something like 1,000 organisations and then even more in terms of people. So, it really does broadly represent Guernsey. But tied to the sort of pivotal crossroads moment is the fact that, over the years, some or all of these organisations have worked together and collaborated. But this is the first time that so many have come together and the first time that a survey has been designed and put out and then communicated in such a way, because we really are at a crossroads and we really, particularly the G8, we really do want to show the way in terms of collaboration. As Alice said, I think, that is one of the critical, behaviours that we're looking for in terms of the new states.
And it's been really well received, both from our memberships and from the candidates that are standing for the election. We've had some great feedback on that.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's important to almost get ahead of the game in terms of a new state comes in, they could be rolling and setting their agendas and going in different directions before really they've heard from the community or heard from the business industry. Has that played into your thinking at all?
Yeah. I'm going to say this a lot of times. We really are at a crossroads, so it was really important we get ahead of the curve. And let's face it, it is a hard job. You sit down. There are a lot of challenges. There's equally a lot of opportunities as well. So what we've done is tried to represent as many as possible and really help the new states in terms of prioritisation. You sort of really get down to it simplistically. That's what it's about. Is look, we think in terms of the business groups and the charity sectors that we represent, these are the 6 critical areas that you need to prioritise, and here are the actions we think you need to take to address them.
And that's, I think one thing that stands out from the survey is that this isn't just highlighting problems, but it's also coming up with solutions. And that's something that we might not have seen so much of before. And let's dive into one of the areas. So I think throughout this election campaign and maybe in the year leading up to it, we've heard a lot about housing. Some people have described it as a crisis. Can mean different things to different people, but obviously that's come out as a key issue.
And it's intertwined with all of the other issues.
Yeah, and I think that may be something we can pull on, because what problems does our current housing situation then have for business and for industry?
Yeah, so it's linked to people. So you're right. So housing was one of the 6 key focus areas, but I think, hand on heart, and most would agree that, if I did stopped someone in the street, or did a straw poll, I think most would say housing is probably number 1, actually. And it's linked to people in terms of the cost of living, day to day, month to month, year to year, but actually more broadly in terms of our ability to attract and retain talent on the island. It was quite interesting as sort of sideways in terms of the recent notice from Aureni. They highlighted housing as one of the challenges in terms of attracting, pilots to the island. And we know the finance sector in particular, and I'm come from a finance background, it's a real challenge in terms of attracting and retaining people in Guernsey.
And for other sectors, employing local people, because it's a difficult housing market out there.
Yeah.
Because I guess when we hear those stories as well, don't we, of young people, they might have come back to the island, they may be on their first steps, they're getting into their mid-20s, but where do they go? They don't want to live with mum and dad anymore. I think that was something that Chamber's spoken about.
Yeah, and it's across the board, isn't it? We've got issues at that end, and then we've got issues with, people not being able to downsize, people coming to the island to fill in, key worker roles. It's so broad. But one of the key points that we've set out in our course of action is actually Guernsey has a really good housing development plan that's good to go, that will address a lot of the issues. So what we really want to see is the incoming government pick that up, not mess around with it, not review it, not waste time, and to start implementing that in the new housing committee. And I think we're, as the G8, we're really happy to get stuck in and help where we can. We have a housing forum already in place that is discussing the issues and helping to sort of unblock blockers where we can assist. But I think that's really what we want to see. We want to see that plan picked up and moved on rather than picked up and reviewed.
Yeah, and I think, linked to that, I mean, the other thing is to really get things moving, because we agree in terms of it is a good plan, the action piece, and we think actually having a champion that's empowered, or a SAR, if we were sitting in the United States, to really start driving through and coordinating, actually, because that's arguably what been one of the challenges here is, everyone's tried to sort of set off and do good things and solve it, but quite siloed, which has actually meant we haven't really got traction. So what we're saying is actually good plan, empower someone to really sort of take everyone forward in terms of action.
And John Pumpkin, who from the Construction Forum, who's part of the group, he's been showing some really good examples of where the collaboration between government and is really speeding things up. So we're really hopeful that showing that has worked so far over the last year, that will help unblock some of the other issues.
Yeah, I think that's maybe a message that hasn't cut through quite as much as you might expect, but the DPA and other departments in the States have been opening their doors to the kind of collaboration and communication that you've been talking about.
And we think that's really positive.
Yeah. But bringing it back to numbers, back to sort of what I was saying earlier, so it comes out really strongly. So, in the survey, so 80% of people who responded said that it's impacting their ability to attract and retain talent. And quite simply, that's a real threat to prosperity in terms of that door I talked about in terms of heading towards a thriving economy.
And just moving on from the housing issue, another key topic that's obviously dominated some of the headlines has been connectivity. Where do you see connectivity, or what was the message from the survey about connectivity?
Yeah, so 2/3 of respondents said that it's having a material impact on their day-to-day operations. So again, that's a challenge that really, really needs to be addressed. And again, there's a very strong call to action there. I think we have to really look at what do we want to achieve in terms of our air policy setting, and that is the call to action. And we think it's something not wanting to be too dramatic, but needs to be prioritised in terms of, again, if we want to be a thriving economy. So the call to action is for the new states to prioritise reviewing the air policy strategy.
You talk about reviewing the air policy strategy. Do you not feel that's been done time and time again?
It's due for renewal anyway, so it's due to be done next year, so we're asking for that to be brought forward.
And you going in that with any conceptions of what the answers should be, or where messages that you've been getting from your members?
We didn't ask our G8 group what they wanted to see within that, I don't believe.
No, we didn't know. But I would say, I'm going to offer from a personal perspective, I would say, look, go from a sort of no sacred cows, because I think it's really important we do a proper, thorough review.
So that it's fit for purpose for living and working here, to make it a great place to live and work. That's what we need. That's what we need it to be.
And again, you've put a timeline on that as well, I think, which feels important. It feels like these issues, like especially at the beginning of the states, can drift and drift on, and you get to a period where decisions can't be made because we're so far down the line. We're thinking about the next states. So has that been important in your thinking, and why have you picked the timeline you picked?
Well, we think it's really important.
And we think it's realistic.
And it's realistic, absolutely. But like any action, I sort of always think about it, who by when. If you don't put a date on it, it really will just drift. So we think that's really important. If you're going to have a call to action, you've got to have a date, realistic date, by which you need to achieve it by or deliver by.
And just to add to that, so we're talking about air connectivity, but I think where we're getting it right, we can show that it does make a massive difference. So the new ferry schedule, having the increased connectivity into France, if you're walking up and down the high street, that's working. The high street is full of French people. So we know we can make the difference that will tweak us in the right direction.
I mean, I guess there was talk late in the term as well as Heathrow coming in as a subsidised route again. Just can you explain to someone like me that might be looking at these kind of things and going, do we need a jet? Do we need Heathrow? Why is that important to business?
I think routes came bottom actually when we were asking people to rank what was important to them. Top was reliability.
Yeah.
So actually, routes wasn't the most important to the business community.
And reliability almost feels like an obvious thing. Like you want people to be able to get to and from the island when you need them to, and have the confidence to do that, I guess.
Exactly.
Moving on again, skills is another. It's probably more of the people side of things that's come out of this survey. Can you just take again us through the message that was given by the people that responded?
Yeah, so education skills. So look, again, not too dissimilar to housing, so very strong message. About 90% of respondents said that the current, when you look at it through an investment mix, it's not fit for purpose. It was quite strong. So investment mix in terms of human capital, simply teachers, versus infrastructure and buildings. So 90% are saying we've got that wrong. It's too much towards the infrastructure. It needs to be more into people that are actually teaching our young kids.
And I guess we have seen that big focus. So we think over the last couple of terms where a lot of time talking about buildings, where things should be located, and not so much talking about what we're educating people for in the future that they're going to be seeing out there. And do we feel like the education system is preparing people for the workplaces that they're going to be going into in the next 5 years?
So it's not something we asked in the survey. We looked at it from an investment mix
You sure?
question, but it is an interesting one in terms of, so again, what the call to action here is around, it really is around collaborating, public and private, and going, if you just fast forward, what are the skills, what are the qualification levels that we need as an island going forward? Because we are rapidly changing. I mean, if you look at it from a emerging and disruptive technology. I mean, I say to my staff at work, today will be the pace of change today will be the slowest in your career. So if you think about it like that, and I think if you went out on the street and said to people, what do you think skills we need? Everyone's going to have a different view. So the call to action is really to work together to go, what skills, what jobs do we need in the future? And then actually create a skills agency that collaborates with business and works with public to actually build and design that.
Because it's two different things, isn't it? There's the current skills shortage. So I think the stat is there's 2,500 vacancies on the island at any given time. So there's the skills shortage of now, which is bums on seats filling those roles, helping grow the businesses that we've got. But also it's looking to the future of what is the skills that we need to grow our economy in 10 years' time, 20 years' time. What jobs will they be? What do we want to be doing? So it's the two things that we need to start thinking about.
I think you've been quite clear about the need for communication and collaboration. What kind of response have you had during this election campaign where you've been trying to spread this message to the candidates?
So we set out a pledge to the candidates. Part one was around behaviours and respectful behaviour and collaboration. And the second part was would they sign up to prioritise our calls to action. We've had, I think it's about 2/3 of the candidates respond saying they would support both of the pledges. We haven't heard back from everybody, so that doesn't mean that the final third don't support them. But it's been really positive, really, really positive. They're pleased to see that the business community is watching, and also that they are sort of setting out their stall here to help. We want to give our time, skills, experience to support them in their term.
And has your experience over the last 6 months of doing this been that the States is receptive to this kind of thinking?
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, as Alice said, we've had really good engagement with candidates. So from the pledge to events we've held, so we had quite a significant event on the 3rd of May.
Yeah.
Where we had, a large percentage of candidates came along to that. We'd walk them through the behaviours that are getting called for, and also the calls to actions relating to the focus areas. So that's really good. But yeah, really, really good engagement. And you get a sense that, this is a pivotal moment, and we do need to work together to tackle these challenges.
And I feel like it's setting the tone for when they get into office. We've worked with them over the last few months while they've been doing their campaign. Everybody knows where we are. They know what we're standing for and know we're here to help. And I think hopefully that means once they're in government, we're setting off on the right foot.
And how do you keep that engagement up? How do you ensure that what you set out during this campaign isn't just lost as other priorities take over?
Well, other priorities may come to the fore, but I think that's for the G8 group to understand how we want to play that going forward. But we've already got an event in the diary for the politicians once they're in place to talk about next steps.
And obviously the calls to actions have who by when. So we have dates. So I'm not saying we're going to be an oversight committee, but clearly we're going to be very keen to know how we're tracking towards those.
I mean, I think you set it out very early on that ultimately everybody wants the island to thrive and succeed, and everybody wants to go in the same direction, don't they? There's no point in becoming a negative voice in all of this, all confrontational.
No,
you have to be optimistic. Yeah, I mean, there's naturally. I'm naturally an optimistic person. I think
Me
Alice
too,
is too. I think most people you talk to are quite optimistic. But it can be quite daunting. I mean, there's obviously a lot more in the report as well. And it can be easy to go the opposite direction to optimistic. But what we're saying here is, there are key areas that we need to focus on. And actually there's quite sensible, realistic actions to address them. But you have to be flexible. We have no doubt next week, next month, next year, there may be something else that comes along. But I think that, the other clear message here is to really emphasize the behaviors. So I talked about, the why we're here. The behaviors is very much the how.
Sure.
The focus here is the what, but the how is really, really important, how we're actually going to get it done. And it is that accountability, integrity, the collaboration and working together as a states, but equally, we should be flexible and agile enough as a small nation to work together, public and private. And I think ultimately, if we get that right, that is the secret sauce to success.
I think it's Guernsey's secret sauce. Yeah, definitely.
I
It
think
is.
It is. It is. We trademarked it.
Yeah. But it is. It's, we've got, it's a little bit of magic, isn't it? That we're a small community, so we can come together really quickly to, we've got loads of really great skills and experience that you can just pick up the phone and go and meet someone in half an hour's time for a coffee to talk about it. And we should make the most of that.
And there are success stories. I mean, if you look at, there's been transactions, acquisitions in the finance industry. There's been acquisition in the hospitality retail industry. There's been a new bank announced this week. So, there's success stories. But equally, there are challenges that we now really need to stand up and tackle.
And take they've got some tough decisions to make in this term. They really, really do, but they do need to be made in this term.
I think it's a good note to end it on, some positivity, but also eyes wide open to the challenges that may lie ahead, but there are solutions there. Just want to thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hopefully we'll see you again soon.
And good luck with Quarry.
Thank you very much.